So, here's the deal. No matter where you stand on either side of the political aisle, you have to acknowledge we've hit a point in our country that our government no longer works for us, but rather we are now enslaved to it. It doesn't have to be that way. The Constitution was written in such a fashion. The Founding Fathers did set up our nation in a manner that we can take back control. But outside of a civil war or a movement, whether people like it or not, that some see as anarchy, except I don't understand how when you overthrow a government that's no longer serving you, that it's truly anarchy. The anarchy is the government trying to enslave you, since the people, we the people, is what it's supposed to represent. Outside of a movement similar to something that happened on the 6th of January, which we have now found out that actually both people on both sides of the aisle were involved in. Some of that was show. The point is, what we have to do, no matter what side of the aisle we stand on, it's at a point that we must start not reaching out, demanding. We must demand of our House and our Senate that there be term limits. Here's what I am proposing. The matter of the fact is, I do not honestly believe after 20 years anyone serves their constituents any longer. So this is the deal. Whether you be a representative, a senator, or if you want to serve as both a representative and a senator, you get a total of 20 years, period. You want, 10 terms as a representative, 2 years apiece? Fine, there's your 20 years. As a senator, serve 6. So you want 3 of those? Fine. The best you can do after that, serve as a representative one time, one term. 20 years, period. That's it. No more, no less. You might say, well, what if I serve 16 years as a representative? Then technically you can't serve as a senator, period. That's all there is to it. Or if you do, after 4 years, you have to evacuate the position, and we'll have a special election and have someone else run to take your post. But what it comes down to is, if we are ever going to get back to our government representing us, is at this point in time, the only way we're going to get back to that is by term limits. We all must, demand such. I am going to continue to make said or such videos as this one, and I will do so for the next 2 years at least, until the next major election. And I do honestly believe that by then we should have done enough, if we will do what we ought, to help bring about term limits. Let's face it, we did that with our president after Roosevelt. So why? So there would never be a king. What is the difference when you have the same collective group of people up there 20, 30, 40 years who put on shows that they're fighting with each other, but then never get anything accomplished one way or another? I'm going to tell you, I tend to be more conservative, but I'm not going to lie. Any of those people that are of the old guard that are up there now, been 20, 30 years, 40 years, they are no longer serving the people they claim to represent. They're lining their pockets or setting up, even if they're not doing anything illegal at this point, for all sorts of speaking engagements if they ever step away from it for the last few years of their life from their retirement. And even if they didn't take any money, the amount of influence they'll have the rest of their life is absurd. So don't kid yourself. This needs to happen. We must demand it. Like I said, you can be conservative, you can be extreme leftist, I don't care. There's nobody that you support that ought to serve more than 20 years. I'm going to tell you right now that some of those, like I said, that old guard that's up there, they're serving nobody but themselves. I'll give Mitch McConnell the fact that he got the justices and that he did that. Good, now go. He's a prime example. He's number one on my list right now. Needs to go from the quote-unquote conservative side. What conservatism used to be is not what it's defined by now. I think we're leaning more towards moral conservatism, which is what I support. Just like a leftist is an extreme, I guess, as far as liberal views, to the point that they think everybody ought to be indoctrinated with everybody's all right and everybody's okay. That's fine. They have a right to that voice. I believe in free will. I don't expect everybody to believe as I do or live their life as I do. But what I do expect is that whoever is elected represent their constituents. And if I cast my ballot for somebody who I believe to be conservative and they should win the election, then I want to be assured that the time they are in office, they will represent me and my values. And that's what anybody should want. So, from here forward, you can call me Term Limit Thurman. Term Limit Thurman. And that's what each and every one of you should become. Term limit whoever. We need to push for this. This ought to be the number one objective going forward. We get this done, some actual things might start getting done.